What I'd like to talk about today is the issue of, well, it's kind of two issues, really. The first issue is the importance of managing your temper when you're involved in some kind of drama in the Philippines. Now, in the United States anyway, I'll speak to the United States since I'm familiar with that. If you have a bad breakup with your girlfriend, and you're yelling and screaming at each other, could be middle of the day, 2 a.m, and the neighbors call the police, and police show up. It's usually handled in a pretty straightforward way. It's looked at as a domestic dispute. 9 times out of 10, the police really don't want to do anything. And if they do anything, they're going to tell the guy, well, why don't you just go stay at a buddy's house or something, and the goal seems to be pretty much just restoring the peace. Now, it can escalate from there to where the woman starts saying that she's been physically abused or sexually abused and, start filing charges against him and all this. And that's a whole other conversation I've talked about in a different video. But for the most part, it's contained. And if you're in the middle of a breakup, you've already separated and you're lashing back and forth at each other on social media, it's not going to really escalate from there. But that's why you need to be aware that if you end up in a bad breakup in the Philippines, do not do any of that stuff. Do not yell and scream at her in your apartment or out on the front lawn or anything. Do not start accusing her and bickering, and I don't know why people drag their dirty laundry out into social media. If you get on social media and you're there giving her name, her picture, people know that you two have been dating, and you're there on your social media, your Facebook, Instagram, whatever, and you're giving your side of the story, which does not need to be told, especially on social media. But if you do that in the Philippines, now you're looking at legal problems. Here it's considered very easily, defamation of a person's public honor. And I know that sounds really old-fashioned and all, but really, once you get to know the history and the culture here, what caused it is not so much the problem. It's the fact that the laws here make it so extremely easy to break the law when it comes to damaging the reputation of another person. And it's so easy that if you're telling the truth, it still can end up landing you in jail. It still can have you facing a civil suit. And you've probably seen examples of this. I can think of one in particular, where one vlogger got into it with another vlogger, and they hate each other, and they're both trolls basically, and they got tired of attacking other people, so they started attacking each other. Well, there was a whole lot of name calling, and so the one started calling the other on social media a pedophile. Now, he had no proof of it. He just was looking for something he could say that would hurt the other person's character and reputation. And the other one, he's about as guilty. He called the other a bunch of names and everything, but it ended up being a matter of who could file first. Well, one filed, and then now the guy's been sitting in jail. I think he's getting ready to spend his 3rd Christmas in prison or jail here in the Philippines, all because he got on social media and started bickering and name calling, damaging the reputation of another person. Doesn't matter if it's an expat or a Filipino. The rules are totally different in the Philippines. Now, there was other things he did. He's not in jail just for that. He also happened to be on Overstay. So it wasn't just that, but it didn't help. So getting back to a bad breakup, if you find out that your girlfriend cheated on you, there's nothing to be gained by you getting animated, angry, shouting, calling her names. In fact, if you're calling her names in front of her house or your dwelling you're sharing, and there's 3 or 4 neighbors within earshot. That qualifies under Philippine law as publicly harming her reputation. And here's the other crazy thing. In the United States, when it comes to libel and defamation, whether written or spoken, there's a distinguishing line over whether or not what you said was true. However, in the Philippines, it's a different ball game. Even if she cheated on you, and it's true, and you have proof, the fact that you aired it out publicly, you have harmed her reputation. You are at fault. You are the one that will be looking at fines and maybe even some jail time. And if she really kept pushing it, depending on the circumstances, you could probably get deported. All because some guy just decided he wasn't going to control his temper. He just felt he had to let the whole neighborhood or everybody on social media know, well, you cheated on me, you did this, you did that. And it may be true. Even if it is true, you can't, in the Philippines, you can't go blabbing that on public social media. You will be held accountable. So the two issues I want to just put in front of you today as a warning, so that you don't fall into this trap. One, control your temper. I did a video before, a couple years ago, about a Filipina that I was dating, and we were in a serious, exclusive, I thought, relationship. And, every year I go to visit my mom in California. Well, long story short, I found out she was cheating on me with two different guys, trying to get pregnant, and then somehow convinced me that it was my kid, even though I had a vasectomy when I was like 28 years old. So when I found out that she was cheating on me, and I had rock solid proof, I had evidence, I had chats, I had, you name it, I had everything. I didn't yell at her, I didn't call her names, I didn't do any of that. I simply sat down with her, gave her an opportunity to confess. She didn't. I put all the evidence in front of her. She had nothing to say at that point. And I wasn't yelling at her. I just simply said, well, look at this. Can you explain it? And then I listened, and she had nothing to say. So I said, okay, we're done. I'm out of here by tomorrow morning. And I packed my things and off I went. And even when I related in the video, I didn't give her name. I didn't show any photo of her. None of that. I just moved on, just went on with my life, dated the next girl. So the number one thing is control your temper. Number two, refrain from sharing this stuff, the details about who she is and what she did in any public way. Social media, or like I said, I remember reading of a case. It was in the online newspaper here in the Philippines, and it was between two Filipinos. And there was an argument in the front lawn. I guess one Filipino came to the other Filipino's front lawn and was expecting to get paid back for some kind of little deal they had going. And so it was like, no, I'm not going to pay you, this and that. And it escalated. And so the neighbors came by the fence and they're watching. So now that part of the law was satisfied, that it was in front of two or more people. And the one person then called the woman that came to his house some kind of derogatory name. So right there, they were found guilty of defamation of character or reputation. So you don't want to do that. And I've had people suggest to me, and they say, why don't you start a Facebook page where scammer Filipinas could be exposed? And you could put their picture and where they are on the dating sites, and guys could submit this info and what happened to them, and this way other guys would be warned. Well, this is why I never did that. Because number one, the moment any of these guys started posting to a Facebook group all the dirty details, even if they're true, about some Filipina, he is now legally liable. And the second thing is, how do you even monitor if any of that is true? You're just hearing one side of the story. So for all you know, the guy got turned down for a relationship, and now he's going to make all this stuff up and try to ruin her reputation online. So it's a bad idea. So those of you who have suggested that, I told you that back then, but I'm just repeating it now. This is why setting up that kind of website doesn't work. I know people want to vent. Well, vent to your close buddy over lunch. do that. Get it out of your system. And then move on. It's not worth ending up in jail. It's my outlook on the whole cheating thing is that a relationship is started because you both decide to work as a team. You're both going to love each other. Nobody else involved. You're going to work as a team and build a life together for the two of you. So if time goes on, and I've been in this situation more than once, where I find out that this woman that I trusted was actually sneaking around and climbing in some other guy's bed. Once I found that out, okay, here's new information. This is not the woman that I'm going to build my life with. This is not a woman I can trust. And this is a woman I, from this moment forward, am not in a relationship with. This is not a mistake like I forgot to get cookies at the grocery store. No, this is indicative of where her heart is at, and it's not with me. So we're done. We're done. There's nothing to talk about, nothing to figure out, not how did we get to this point. It doesn't matter. We're done. So you do whatever you got to do. If you got to get a divorce, you get a divorce. If you got to, move to a different place or get her to move to a different place, you get out from under the same roof and you get on with your life. Count yourself lucky that you found out you can end it, and now go find somebody that is worth your time. Somebody that is going to offer you actual loyalty. Because all this other nonsense about getting back at her and making her pay and making her hurt as much as you're hurt, and you're going to ruin her life and ruin her reputation, that is a bad road to go down. Just drop it. Let it go. Move on with your life. Okay? So, love to hear about any circumstances you had to face similar to this and any of your ways that you've handled it. And we'll talk about that in the comments.